Ladies and gentlemen, and Kirby, Andy here. I went from depressed and suicidal, get out of here, Kirby, to living a life of abundance and joy. If I can do it, you sure as hell can too. A lot of you know that peace and happiness are two goals that are very important to me. Maybe the most important goals in my life at this moment. And one thing that's brought me a lot of peace is letting go of what you might call positionality, as in having a position, having an opinion on everything. Letting go of the need to be right, letting go of the need to be correct, letting go of the need to argue points with people, letting go of arguments entirely, and being okay with being wrong sometimes, making mistakes, if you want to call it that. I don't believe there are mistakes, but that's a separate topic. But basically, it's brought me a lot of peace to not feel like I need to be right all the damn time. A saying that I will say to people sometimes in the coaching program when they're very stuck on trying to be right or not wanting to look silly or not wanting to look wrong, whatever that might mean, I will say to them, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? And we see this a lot, right? Where someone is very stuck on an opinion or very stuck on a topic or very desperate to defend their ego and defend their pride and defend their point of view, that they make themselves unhappy. They're willing to sacrifice their happiness just to possibly be right or to feel like they're right. But again, something that's brought me a lot of peace is letting go of this need to be right, letting go of what Buddhism and plenty of other people call dualism, which is seeing things in dualistic terms, one versus the other, right versus wrong, good versus evil. And this is a topic that I've talked about a lot on this channel over the last, year or two. Letting go of labeling things as good or bad. When we think in such simple, childish or childlike terms of this is good, this is bad, this is evil, this is good, this is right, this is wrong, it erases a lot of the subtleties and the gray areas, and it makes us very beholden to the point that we've chosen, even to the point where sometimes that thing that we're latched onto, that opinion that we're stuck on, isn't serving us anymore. And I see this a lot, where someone will be stuck on a point or stuck on an opinion that is obviously causing them a lot of unhappiness, and maybe a lot of you listening. Maybe you've met someone who seems very stuck on an opinion, or they're very stubborn with the way that they do something or the way that they believe something, and it's literally causing them unhappiness, but they're stuck on it. They're unwilling or just not ready yet to let that thing go or let that opinion go. And if you think about it, we spend our entire lives letting go of opinions that no longer serve us. We just don't realize that we're doing it. When you're a child, like when you're literally a baby, you believe things and you have opinions, or you just have a level of understanding that won't serve you when you're, grown up. For instance, let's pick the most obvious one. When you are a baby, you literally defecate, you shit in your pants. And you think that that's a very, normal, wonderful thing to do. And it is at that age. But at some point, something clicks in your mind and you go, oh, this isn't going to serve me if I keep doing this. If I'm a 8-year-old and I'm shitting in my pants in public, okay, that comes with consequences. I'm going to let go of my attachment to that, or I'm going to upgrade my level of learning. I'm going to try something different. I'm going to be someone different. I'm not going to be the person that shits in his pants at 8 years old, and definitely not by the time you're a teenager or an adult. When you're a small child, you believe that your parents are essentially God. Whoever raised you, you think that they're the most intelligent, wise creature on the entire planet. You think they have all the answers. You think they're essentially God, and you should listen to everything that they say. But as you grow up, as you enter adolescence and maybe adulthood for some of us, you start to realize, hey, my parents might not be correct about everything, and their mindsets or their opinions on how they want me to live my life, that might not cause me the most happiness. Maybe I won't listen to them on everything. They're still wise, wonderful people or whatever, but I'm not going to believe their opinions on everything. And so my point here is that we are already letting go of opinions that no longer serve us. or of mindsets or philosophies, whatever you want to call it. We let go of behaviors and opinions that no longer serve us. We already do that. And I've found that I bring myself a lot more peace when I can be more open to that process, as in more open to letting go of some of the opinions that I have long held onto that are no longer serving me anymore. If I upgrade my knowledge or my understanding and I come to see that there might be a better way of doing something than what I was doing before, even if before I declared that I will always do it this way, this is my opinion and I will always do it like this, I found it brings me so much peace to let go of that past behavior or opinion that's no longer going to serve me. And that does at times mean I might risk looking like a hypocrite. If I was very strongly attached to an opinion in the past, which I used to be very strongly attached to my opinions and my way of doing things. And most people are. Most people are very attached to their way of life, their way of doing things, their belief system, their religion, their rule set for life, their rule book for life. Most people are very fucking attached to that. And a lot of people will defend that to the death. They're so attached to it. They're literally willing to die rather than risk being wrong or being thought of as wrong or having someone else dislike the way that they do things. But again, I've found that it has brought me so much peace over the last couple of years to just let go of the stuff that isn't serving me anymore, to risk being wrong, to have my opinions, turn out to be naive. I'm okay with that. And that's taken a process, or that's been a process that's taken quite a lot of surrender and letting go and humility. I used to be one of the most opinionated people that you would ever meet. And you'll see that if you go and read my articles on my website on killyouronlyloser.com. If you scroll all the way to the very last page of the archives and you read, just flick through like 10 of the oldest articles, you'll see that I used to be very opinionated and very stuck on my current level of thinking at the time. Whatever I believed at that time, I believed that that was correct and would always be correct and was correct for other people. Now, I wasn't too forceful with my opinion. I believed very firmly in letting people do whatever they wanted to do. I didn't want to force my opinion on someone else. But I was very, very stuck on my opinions. And I believed that I would always be stuck on them, that I would always believe them. But again, in the last couple of years, it's brought me so much peace to let go of that need to be correct, that need to be vitriolic about the things that I believe. And one thing that I do a lot now that really helps is I will add the word maybe or the caveat of I can't predict the future to a lot of the opinions that I have. When I'm coaching people, I've done this for years now, I will say, here's what worked for me, or here's what might work for you. Why don't you go try it? And you'll hear me say that in videos a lot. I'll say, I'm not your dad. It's not my job to tell you how to live your life. And I can't guarantee this will work for you, but it might. And so go try it. Or I'll say, here's what worked for me and a couple of my clients. Here's what worked for me and all of my friends. I'll give caveats that this isn't the monopoly or that I don't have a monopoly on truth, that my opinion isn't true for everyone or isn't universally correct just because I feel like it is. And letting go of this need or this attachment to being thought of as right or to have my opinion validated or to try and say I'm correct has brought me a lot of peace, as in letting go of that has brought me a lot of peace, especially because half the time, if we're honest, half the time, maybe more than that, our opinions turn out to be incorrect. Sometimes our opinions turn out to be fucking worthless. I'll say this in a gentle way, but if you go through comment sections, you can go through comment sections on my videos, you can go through comment sections on random videos. Half of the opinions that are posted there are posted from people who believe that they are correct, but their comment comes with zero experience. They literally have no experience with, or very little experience with the thing that they're talking about, but they say their comment as if it is universally true and everyone should believe it. If you go on Twitter, you might see the same thing. A lot of people that are very vitriolic and very almost zealous with their opinion. But if you dig a little deeper under the surface or do a little research, or hell, sometimes even just look at the opinion for half a second, you're like, well, that's factually incorrect. Literally, I have tangible proof that that opinion is not correct. And so I think we all know that opinions are not always correct. And yet the way the brain or the way the ego, the way our minds work, is every thought that's in your head, we tend to believe by default unless we go in there and question it and say, is that thought true just because it's in my head? Is it actually true? If we don't question our thoughts, we just automatically believe that they're true. And again, we will often defend them to the death in some cases. A similar thing that I used to do and that a lot of people do is mind reading. You know, how many times have some of you found yourselves, and I have at times too, trying to read someone else's mind? People do that especially in dating. You know, something I help a lot of people with is dating and sex and love and relationships. I cannot tell you how many thousands of times I have talked to a coaching client or done a live stream where I go and answer all of your questions and do a coaching live stream, where people will literally be reading or trying to read somebody else's mind. You know, if it's a guy, he'll be trying to read the mind of a woman that he's hitting on or the woman that he's going on a date with. And if it's a woman, she'll be trying to mind read, you know, her boyfriend or mind read some guy that she's gone on a date with, and literally trying to analyze someone else's behavior and then try and explain their intent. What I mean by that is people will look at someone's behavior and then say, I know exactly why they did that. I know what their intention was. No, you don't. You're not in their head. How could you possibly know their intention unless you ask them? And so I see this a lot. Like I said, people trying to mind read other people saying, I know how women think. I know how men think. Some of you listening might have even caught yourselves saying that at times. I know what women want. I know women are all gold diggers. I know men are all fucking just out for sex. As if you could read the other person's mind or understand their intent. And almost every time I have had a client tell me that they know how to mind read, or tell me that they know why a woman did something, or that they know what their boyfriend is doing, or that they know what behavior is going to come next from that other person, I encourage them to be honest and just ask that person. And almost every time, they turn out to be incorrect, or they're missing some piece of the puzzle, or they don't have a deep level of understanding. And even as we explore topics like psychology and human behavior and determinants of human behavior and all of those things that we talk about on this channel, you know, I've read hundreds of psychology books at this point. I have read hundreds of spiritual books. I have read so much Buddhism. I've read everything from Byron Katie, David Hawkins, and 1,000 other people. I have read a lot over the last 4 years. I would say I have dedicated and had deep devotion over the last 4 years to learning human behavior, learning how our minds work. And really, I've been exploring those topics my entire life because they fascinate me. And I've read everything from Jung, read everything from Nietzsche. I have read Viktor Frankl. I could list you 10,000 books that I have read. And yet, as I explore more and more and more of these topics, I am reminded of the quote from, I believe it was Seneca, who said, Seneca or Socrates, one of those two, who said, I know enough to know that I know nothing. And the deeper that I myself explore human psychology and topics like enlightenment, topics like peace and happiness, and why are we all here? What is the point of humanity? What is the point of consciousness? Why do we live in this universe? Is there a God? All of these kind of questions that I've been exploring for the last, you know, my whole life really, but especially the last 3 or 4 years, the deeper I get, the more I realize there's just a lot that I don't know yet. Maybe I will never know those things. And I am constantly upgrading my level of understanding when it comes to, like I said, psychology, the nature of being alive, other people and why they do things, myself and why I do things, how my brain works, how the ego works, what is awareness, what is the higher self. Detaching from my thoughts and feelings and not necessarily just believing them just because they're in my head. The more I dive into these topics and learn, the more I realize that my previous levels of understanding were missing so much subtlety and nuance. You know, there's that saying, you don't know what you don't know. And there's always been a lot of stuff that I don't know. And every time I learn something new, I look back on my past self and I say, wow, son, you were doing your best, but damn, were you naive? And so it can be a beautifully humbling experience. toying with the idea of maybe I don't know everything. And I've fully embraced that now, but that took me quite a few years. It took me a long time to no longer be the expert and not see myself as the teacher or the expert. I say this all the time. I'm just some bald guy on the internet. I don't have all the answers for you. Don't look at me and say, oh, Andy can tell me how to live my life perfectly. I don't know you. I don't have all the answers. I'm not your father. I'm certainly not some guru or some amazing teacher who's going to transform your life. I know some things, and some of my advice is helpful. Some of it changes lives. Some of the things that have been given to me, like the knowledge and the beautiful gifts that have been given to me, I'm here to share with you, and some of them will help you. But I definitely don't know everything. I am absolutely not the expert. I cannot read people's minds. My opinions, a lot of the time, turn out to be, if not incorrect, then at least missing a lot of nuance and a lot of extra context and a lot of information. And what we're talking about here is something that has been incredibly helpful, which is humility. And humility is essentially letting go of one's opinions or allowing room for a little bit of space for other opinions, not just being beholden to the thoughts that are in your head and saying, well, it's in my head, so it must be true. I have the monopoly on truth and everybody else is wrong. Meanwhile, everybody else is saying the exact same thing. Almost every person in society walks around saying everything that's in my head is correct and all the rest of you are wrong. And it's like you are all saying, or we are all saying exactly the same thing to each other. Literally everyone is saying, you are all wrong. Everyone is pointing the finger at everybody else and saying, if you don't agree with every thought in my head, then you're wrong. At some point, does the penny not drop and you pause and say, wait, everybody else is saying that I'm wrong, and I'm saying that everybody else is wrong. Fuck, there's got to be something going on here. Is there at least a little bit of room for the possibility that I might be wrong with some of my opinions? Or at least my opinions might just be one way of looking at the world, one way of going through life, one opinion, but there's room and space for other opinions that might be opposing opinions. Is it possible that I could be correct and somebody else's could be correct? And that, by the way, is called non-dualism. The idea that two opposing things could be correct at the same time. Or you might say letting go of holding onto one opinion and saying this is the only opinion that's correct. And so all of this stuff that I'm talking about here is humility. It's something that can be actively practiced and built into a habit. Every time you have a thought in your head and you say, I know the way the world should be, or I know what that person should do. I know best for other people. I know best for myself. It's just in those moments saying, but I could be wrong. Or I could be missing some key piece of information. Literally just repeating that like a mantra every time you have a thought in your head. You can also do the Byron Katie exercise. I love Byron Katie. She has a process called the work. And essentially, every time you have a thought in your head that is bringing you a little bit of tension or something that you're very stuck on, like an opinion that you're very stuck on, every time you have that thought in your head, you basically say, is it true? And your ego or your mind will immediately go, of course it's true. I believe it, so it is true. But the next question you ask is, can I absolutely know that it's true? And just asking these two questions alone with all of your opinions can help untangle some of those opinions or help untangle some of the attachment to those opinions and allowing space that maybe you're not always correct. Maybe you don't always have all the pieces of the puzzle. Maybe sometimes you are missing some key information. And letting go of that attachment to the opinion then allows a little bit of space for us to actually investigate the truth and find out some more information. Find out a differing opinion, find out a different way of looking at things, or get some more context, rather than just irrationally jumping to conclusions, which is what most of us do. It's the way the mind works. It's the way the ego works. It wants to jump straight to the conclusion and then declare that it has a monopoly on truth, that it is the only way of looking at things, that you are right and everybody else is wrong. Everybody believes they are intelligent and that their opinions are correct. And letting go of a little bit of that, and like I said, risking or being willing to look silly sometimes, risking being called wrong, risking being a hypocrite if you later change your opinion or gather a little bit more information and upgrade your level of learning. Being okay with these things is called humility. And even just the very act of letting go of a lot of my opinions or not being so stuck on them has brought me a lot of peace, because opinions are often very emotional. They're not necessarily logical or rational or based in truth. That's why we have a different word for them, opinion. A lot of the time, opinions turn out to be the angry musings of a scared little child in your brain. You know, a lot of people's opinions come from a place of fear or loss or anger or hatred or pride or ego or vanity. The opinion isn't necessarily there because it's based on any truth. You know, again, if you want evidence of this, go into any YouTube comment section, go into any Twitter thread or whatever, and you will see a bunch of people, go onto Reddit especially, you will see a bunch of people giving opinions on topics that they have literally zero experience in any industry. This just is the universal nature of most people's opinions, or most of our egos. Maybe you can just say the ego. It likes to give an opinion no matter what. That's kind of its function. It wants to give an opinion even if it has nothing valuable to say. It will still weigh in. The fact that we have democracy as the way that we run most Western countries, and I think democracy can be a beautiful thing, but people literally weigh in when they have no or very little facts, very little information. They just vote based on emotion. I don't like this guy. Trump makes me mad. Biden seems old. These are not factual, or I guess there is fact there, but these are not necessarily logical, rational opinions. They're just emotional opinions. If you zoom out a little bit and pay attention to politics, particularly American politics, but I don't think it's very different in many other countries, it is for the most part based on emotions. It is theater, it is theatrics, and it is almost entertaining. But we certainly don't vote, most people certainly don't vote based on facts or logic or rationality. They will say that they are, but I think we all understand that no, it's pretty emotionally charged. Most politics, most elections, most government is pretty much voted in based on emotion. And so letting go of some opinions has helped me let go of being so emotional. Like, as I have let go of my attachment to the irrational opinions that sometimes just appear in my head, or often do, because we all have irrational opinions just appear in our head, right? But not being so attached to those opinions has meant that my life just has a lot less emotionality to it, and I am a lot more rational, stoic, logical, and calm and peaceful. Literally letting go of my opinions, or the need to defend my opinions, the need to be stuck on my opinions, has brought me peace. Not needing an answer to every single question. That's another one. You know, being okay with saying, I don't know. Most people are so utterly terrified to ever say, I don't know, that they will just make something up so they can pretend to look like they have a smart opinion. I really, really, really came to understand this when I was quite young, when I was in my 20s. I worked quite a few jobs where I would be like a manager. I worked in retail, in a few different businesses as a manager. I cannot tell you how many times I would have to have, or I chose to have, conversations with people where I would spend basically half an hour drilling into them. Look, if you ever don't know something, that is okay. In fact, that is so unbelievably normal and expected. I don't expect you to know everything, especially not at this job, especially given you're not the manager. I don't know everything, and I'm the manager. How the hell are you expected to know everything? You're a staff member. We can't between us know everything. And so anytime you don't know something at work, please just say to the customer, I don't know, but I'm going to find out for you, and then ask me. And if there's something that you don't know, just in general, you don't know what you're supposed to do next, or you don't know what blah, 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 ask me. Come to me. I promise you are never bothering me. You will never be wasting my time. I want you to come to me and say, I don't know. And then I will say, cool, let's figure it out together. Or I'll tell you why it is this thing. And I'll explain it to you so you have a deeper level of understanding. Again, really drilling it into you, there are a lot of things that I don't know. I sometimes say to the customer, I don't know, but I will find out for you. And I drilled this into so many people. And yet I can't tell you how many times somebody would do something and make some big mistake and then cover it up. And then I would eventually find out a couple of days or weeks later. And I'd be like, hey, does anyone know what happened here? What is this mistake? What's this? This is a huge deal. Does anyone know what this is? No one's in trouble, but just tell me what this is so we can fix this. And then somebody would sheepishly say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know what to do. So I just tried and guessed and I made a big mistake and I just tried to cover it up so you wouldn't find out. And I'm really embarrassed and I'm really sorry. And I would very gently, very patiently say, hey, remember the big conversations that we've had fucking 50 times now where I say, if there's ever anything you don't know, just tell me. And they would say, yeah, I know, but I don't know. I didn't want to look stupid. And so this was something that I came to see is just so unbelievably common with most people, is a terror or a fear of looking silly or looking stupid or not knowing something. And so they will almost just guess or invent something or insert an opinion. I saw that a lot too, when a customer would ask a question and the staff member would have no idea, but they would just make something up so they don't look stupid. They would be so afraid of saying to the customer, hey, I don't know, let me go find out, that they would just be like, it's this. And then I would very gently step in and say, actually, sorry, pause. No, this is the right answer, because I wanted the customer to have the right answer, right? So I'd say, hey, no, sorry, this is the right answer. That's okay. Don't stress about the mistake. That's fine. This is the right answer. And the customer will go, oh, okay, thank you. And then I'd turn to the staff member once the customer had left and I'd say, hey, did you really think it was that? And they'd be like, no, I just didn't want to look stupid, so I just made something up. And then I would very gently say, hey, let's not make stuff up, because then the customer gets the wrong answer. You're actually making their life harder, or you're doing something to their detriment. So if you don't know, just say to the customer, I don't know. Hang on a second, I will ask. And then turn to me, look at me and just say, hey, do you know the answer to this? And then I'll tell you. And then you will know for the future because I got to tell you. So please just tell me if you don't know something. It's okay to say to someone, I don't know. And yet this is such an incredible fear that I would have to have these conversations with basically every single person that I've ever worked with, ever. And I've worked with, I don't know, across my whole life, maybe I've worked with 100 people, I guess. I've been a manager of 100 people, maybe. I swear to God, it's 85%, maybe 90% of people I've had to have this conversation with 5, 10, 15, 20 times. This conversation of it's okay to not have the right answers. It's okay to not know something. It's okay to say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know what the answer is. But people have such a strong aversion to that. It's almost like a terror that we will, again, insert an opinion that we literally know is false, or that we just are guessing and making up and we're pretty sure is not correct, but we just say it anyway, because we have such a strong fear of looking like an idiot or looking silly. You see this, or maybe this starts in the classroom at school. When a teacher says, who knows what the answer is? And maybe you think you know what the answer is, but you're not sure. So you put your hand up and you have a little guess and you say, is it this? And your answer was way off. And so the teacher, or maybe the other students, start laughing, and they laugh at you and they go, haha, why did you think it was that? And you feel like a fucking idiot. You feel like such a fucking moron in that moment. And you go, okay, I guess I shouldn't put my hand up unless I absolutely am 100% certain of the answer. Even then, I will doubt myself. And so maybe I still won't even put my hand up, just in case I'm wrong. I might be wrong, I shouldn't put my hand up. And how many of us can remember a similar experience in school? Maybe you tried putting your hand up, or maybe you saw somebody else get laughed at, and you just never put your hand up anymore. If you think about it, when I think back to my childhood, it's not like everybody in the classroom was putting their hand up and trying to have a go. The teacher would say, what is the answer to this? And maybe 1 or 2 people would put their hands up. Most people would sit there and just not try. And sometimes the teacher would see that nobody is putting their hand up, and the teacher would have to just pick somebody and go, okay, hey, you, I want you to put your hand up. I even see a small version of this on coaching calls sometimes. Every now and then, particularly if we have a new batch of new people coming to the coaching program, at the start of every call, I'll say, okay, who wants to go first with their question? And sometimes everybody will sit there and go, well, I don't want to go first because I might look like an idiot. I might look silly. And so we often have such a strong aversion to ever looking silly or looking like we don't know what we're talking about or having the wrong opinion that sometimes it causes us, or often with a lot of us, it causes us to overcorrect. And we insert stupid opinions just so we can say, no, I know the answer. Look, I have an answer ready to go. I'm not stupid. I'm not sitting there without an opinion. And again, if you go in any comment section on the internet, you will see people inserting their incredibly useless opinions just because they want to have something to say. They want to feel right. They want to feel intelligent. And I used to be like that. I didn't insert opinions on the internet. I didn't leave comments or anything like that, but I had an opinion on everything. And letting go of that need to have an opinion on everything, being okay with being able to say, I don't know. This is something that I say to my coaching clients a lot. I say all the fucking time, I don't know. But what if we try this first? What if we try this one second? Let's just try and experiment and see what works. And this will be really useful. We can both learn something. Being able to say, I don't know, has brought me so much fucking peace. Because again, then I can go from that place of I don't know. I can go from there and to the place of learning. If I say I don't know, the very next step is, okay, let me find out. Or let me experiment and see what happens. Or let me Google it and see if somebody else has the answer. Let me ask somebody who knows what they're talking about, who has actual experience with this thing. I can then learn and level up my knowledge. But the obsession with having opinions and being stuck on them and always wanting to know, always wanting to look like you're smart and always wanting to look like you have the right answer ready to go, just causes you to be stuck at your current level of learning. You can't learn anything if you're so steadfast stuck on your opinion. If you're so afraid of saying, I don't know, if you're so terrified of looking silly, if you're so terrified of possibly getting rejected, so many people have an aversion to rejection, as if something bad happens because somebody doesn't like you or doesn't want you. Nothing bad happens other than the story that you tell about it. But if you're so adverse or terrified of rejection, terrified of looking silly, terrified of making a mistake, you can't learn anything. Like literally, you can't level yourself up and improve if you're so stuck with your opinions or stuck on the need to always be right. And so saying I don't know or shutting my mouth, literally just shutting my fucking mouth when I don't know something, rather than just inserting some half-baked dumbass opinion just so that I don't feel left out. If I can instead just shut my fucking mouth and say nothing when I don't know, man, my ears are then open to listening. There's a really good quote from one of my favorite authors called Mark Twain, who said, "It is better to keep your mouth closed and be thought a fool rather than to open it and remove all doubt." Mother Teresa had a similar quote, which was, "In the silence of the heart, God speaks." And if you're not religious, fine, slightly retweak that quote to basically say, in the silence, like if you sit there and say fucking nothing, then beautiful things happen. If you sit there and say nothing, then truth might come to you. God might speak to you, so to speak. Or you might fucking learn something. Somebody else who has a more experienced opinion than you might be able to actually speak to you and you might listen to it. This will happen from time to time. It happened yesterday, actually, where I will have someone come to me for a coaching call, and almost it's usually someone who I don't know. It's like their first call or something. They will come to me and they will ask me for help with something. They'll tell me that they're deeply unhappy, blah, 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 blah. And they'll ask me for my advice, and I will give it to them, but they will interrupt me, or they will argue, or they will say, yeah, but I don't feel like that's correct, or I don't feel like what you're saying would work for me, as if I'm supposed to respect their feelings, or I'm supposed to give their feelings as much weight as the combined experience of the last 9 years of my life and all of the clients that I've worked with and all of my friends. And again, that doesn't mean I'm correct all of the time. I'm not saying that, but some person who is unhappy and has no experience and is relying on their feelings to be the beacon of truth for them, how does that weigh up against, again, 9 or 10 years of combined experience with myself, all of my clients, all of my friends, blah, 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 blah. And so I will have this sometimes where someone is so keen to keep expressing their opinion and they feel so correct with their opinion that they don't actually just close their mouth, and that takes humility, close their mouth and listen to the person that they are asking advice from. And how many of you know someone in a similar situation? It's a very common thing. Again, I'm not really picking on this guy. Nothing against this guy. This is like such a normal thing. I'm so used to it by now that someone will come to me, ask for advice. They're deeply unhappy in their life, and then they'll argue with everything that I say. And at that point, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to argue. I don't mind if you believe me or not, but you're unhappy. Do you want to listen to me or not? You don't have to. But are you going to listen to me or go listen to someone else who has experience? But at some point, you're probably going to want to listen to someone if you want to be happier. But how many of you have a similar experience? Maybe a friend, maybe a family member, someone comes to you and says, I'm unhappy or I'm overweight. Can you help me lose weight? And you go, okay, cool. I can help. I have experience with this. Hey, so just try this. And then they go, yeah, but that won't work for me. And you're like, but you don't know. You haven't tried it. And they're like, no, I just know that won't work for me. And you go, well, okay, well, what about this different? Try this instead then. And they're like, no, that won't work for me either. And you're like, but have you tried it? Nah, but I just know that won't work. And you're like, you have no experience with this thing that you're asking me for help from or help about. I have experience with this thing. You came to me for help. I gave you multiple different answers or solutions or steps that you can take next. And you just were so closed-minded and so ready to insert your opinion that this wouldn't work when you have no experience. So you're literally just inserting a useless opinion. You're inserting a guess. You are guessing that this won't work for you when you haven't even tried it. You don't even know why it won't work for you. You're just inventing that it won't work for you. It's not like you tried it for a week and it didn't work or you didn't like it. Fine, that's different. You haven't even tried it yet and you're saying it won't work. And so we all have experience. So I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that, right? Someone that comes to you for advice. I see this a lot, when I do a video on something that I have a deep level of understanding on. And again, that doesn't mean that I'm correct. I'm not saying that. I'm not always correct. But something that I clearly have literally a decade of experience with, let's say sex and dating. And I will do some video and then a bunch of people will come in and say, here's a really good one. Honesty. When I do a video on honesty and I talk about all the subtleties and nuances of honesty in dating, and I talk about how it's been life-changing and why I advocate honesty and why I like to be honest in my own dating life and upfront and all of that, and talk about all of the clients that have been honest and how much it's transformed their lives and blah, 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 blah. And I talk about the hundreds of people that have emailed me and told me how much being honest in dating and sex and relationships has been just beautiful for them. I'll do a video on that. And then almost every time, like clockwork, I will have someone come in and say, honesty won't work for me. I know this because women are bitches. Or honesty won't work for me. I know this because guys just want one thing. And it's like you have no experience or very little experience with this, and you haven't really tried it. You haven't tried deep honesty and vulnerability, which can take baby steps. That's something that you work up towards. You don't have to throw yourself into the dating market and be deeply honest off the bat, although you can be. But you haven't tried taking the baby steps towards a little bit more honesty and openness. And yet your brain is telling you that this won't work based on no experience, just an opinion. And so again, we can all think of we could sit here and come up with 100 other examples of times that we've all found someone that comes to us and they're very just stuck on their opinion, and you're like, this opinion isn't even making you happy. You came to me telling me that your life is unhappy and I gave you some solutions, but you're so stuck on your opinion that you would rather be right than be happy. And that's that quote that I said at the start of the podcast. I say that to people sometimes. I've said that once or twice when they're very, very, very stuck on their opinion and they're asking me for advice, and I sit there and give them advice for an hour or two, and they're just so stuck on their opinion. I gently said this to the guy yesterday that I did a coaching call with. I always say this nice and gently as I possibly can, and without any judgment or any resentment. But I say, I think maybe right now where you're at, you would rather be right than be happy. Your brain would rather say that it is correct and that you're right and that you know why this won't work. and you know better about the dating market or about women or about sex than Andy does, who you came to and paid advice to listen to, you'd rather be right than to be happy, because being happy often requires letting go of positionality, letting go of being stuck on a position, letting go of being stuck on an opinion. Cam, my fellow coach and my good friend Cam, has done plenty of videos on this channel, and I've talked about this too, about humility. Like if you ask Cam, what do you think is one barrier to success, or what do you think is something that's required in order to start changing and being successful? The first thing that he will say is humility, like being humble, like having just a little bit more humility. You don't have to be the most humble person on the entire planet. I certainly wasn't when I started my self-improvement journey. No, I was very arrogant, very prideful, very angry. I was an angry young man, probably the kind of person that would have resonated with like Andrew Tate's message, angry young man. I was that person. But I was also humble enough to say, look, I don't know how to talk to women. I don't know how dating works. I don't know how to make friends. I don't know how to lose weight. I don't know how to build a body. I don't know how to be happy. I definitely don't know that one. Okay, I'm going to listen to other people who seem to have some experience with this stuff, and I'm going to just shut my fucking mouth and do what they tell me. Like, I'm just going to shut up and try their advice. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then I'll just go to the next person and shut my mouth and listen to them. And I'll just try a whole bunch of people's advice until I figure it out, until I find the person who can help me. Because I don't know jack shit. If I did, I'd be happy right now. If I did, then I'd have the life that I want to live right now, wouldn't I? So I clearly don't know. And so that we might call humility, or you also might call it willingness, or being open, being willing and open to advice. If you ask me the same question that I just said before, like if you said to me, hey, Andy, what is the one thing or the one most important thing that you think is required in order for someone to change or to improve their life? My only answer is willingness, as in being willing. You have to be willing to change. You have to want to change. Lots of self-help people will tell you that. How do I make someone change? You can't. They have to want it. How can I change myself? You just have to want it and then dedicate yourself to doing it. So willingness or wanting it or humility, these are all ways of explaining the same sort of concept, that if you can let go of your need to be right or your need to be correct all the damn time, you can actually start to change. And everything that I've said here today, some of you might be able to resonate or might be able to relate to some of this. Maybe some of you are stuck on opinions right now. Like maybe you really believe I'm short, therefore no woman would want me. And then I come in and I say, like me, Andy, I come in and I say, well, here's fucking 50 videos from coaching testimonials, from people who were short, and look at their sex and their dating and their relationship life now. Look at their love life. Here's a whole bunch of other people who were short. Here's Nick Vujicic, who is a guy that was born with no arms and no legs. So he's literally like fucking 2 feet, 3 feet tall, who has a beautiful wife. Her name is like Kanye. I can never pronounce her name. Kanye. They have 4 kids together. He has this beautiful, amazing fucking life. He's probably the shortest man on the planet. Again, no arms and no legs. And he can find love. How come he can find love and you're saying you can't? But people will, maybe you listening will argue and say, like you'll argue in your head. I don't argue with anyone. I'm not interested. But you might argue with me in your head and go, yeah, but they were different. I still can't do it. Maybe you're so stuck on the opinion that it's too late for you. A lot of you listening will have actively said in comments, or you've emailed me and said, I feel like it's too late for me. I'm 28, maybe you're in your 30s, maybe you're in your 40s, and you're like, it's too late. I can't find love. No woman would want me. No man would want me. It's too late for me. And you're stuck on that opinion. And I have probably 15 videos on how I used to think it was too late for me when I was 28. That's when I started my self-improvement journey at 28. I started at 28. I had 0 friends. I was overweight. I had just broken up with a long-term relationship. I had no idea what I was doing. Very fucking lonely, very fucking sad. I started at 28. And I do that video, and then I have other people like Cam come in and say the same thing. I do all the testimonials from all the guys that were 30 and virgins, and they thought it was too late for them. I have all this content showing you that it's not too late. And yet maybe you're stuck on that opinion still. And you're like, yeah, I know he has all that, but it's still too late for me. I still feel like it's too late for me. My feelings say that it's too late for me. My opinion says that it's too late for me. Therefore, that opinion and that feeling is worth more than all of the combined experience and evidence, actual, tangible evidence that Andy has. And I'm just one person, remember. You can scour the internet for a million people that were old and thought they were too old and they still found love. You know, my grandparents only met when they were in their like 50s and they fell in love and lived a life together. Like, is that too old? My aunt and uncle met in their late 40s and they found each other. Is that too old? There are people that find love in nursing homes, for God's sakes. Like, you're never too old until you're taking your last breath. And yet you might be stuck hard or stuck fast on this opinion. You know, maybe you think that you're a loser and no woman would like you, or you're a loser and no man would like you. Whatever limiting belief that you have or opinion, and it is just an opinion, whatever opinion that you were stuck on, if you can just start to let go of that just a tiny bit. I'm not asking you to fully let go of it. You don't have to suddenly wake up and believe, I can change, I can do anything. But if you can believe maybe there's a tiny little possibility or a chance that I could change something, maybe I could do this just a little bit. That's all we need, because that's all I had at the start. I didn't believe that women would ever be nice to me. I didn't believe they'd ever like me. I definitely didn't believe that I could have a lot of friends and they could like me. I didn't believe my life could be cool. I didn't believe that I could ever appreciate my life. I didn't believe any of that shit. Why would I believe that? I was so fucking full of doubts. I never believed that I could build this business that we have now. I never believed that I could pay the bills full time from just helping people on the internet. I wouldn't have believed that. How the fuck could I ever believe something like that? That's crazy talk, you know? But I left the door open for the possibility that maybe I could do a tiny bit. You know, maybe I could find one woman who would like me. Maybe I could find a girlfriend again if I really tried for the next 5 or 10 years. Maybe I could have a little bit of sex if I really tried. Maybe I could just help a few people with my articles. You know, maybe I could earn $5 from my website each month. Maybe I could find a couple of loyal friends who were also into self-improvement and they would push me and care about me and I would care about them. You know, these were the things that these were the baby steps that I gave myself at the start. You know, I didn't think I could do all this crazy stuff that we've done so far. I didn't think that I could live this life of abundance and joy and gratitude and love and kindness and all of that. Why the fuck would I ever think I could do that? That's impossible talk. Like I said, that seemed like crazy talk. I didn't even entertain the possibility that I could do any of what I've done so far. But I did open the door for those little baby steps. And so that's all I'm saying here. You don't have to let go of all of your opinions. I haven't let go of all of my opinions. You don't have to be some Buddhist monk who just has transcended fucking duality and all of that, but just open the door for the tiniest possibility that maybe, just maybe, you can improve and change your life just a tiny bit. In other words, maybe you can make your life 1% better than it currently is. Maybe you can take that little baby step and that little leap of faith and improve just a tiny bit. This is why I say all the time, focus on progress, not perfection. Focus on what is one little baby step that I can do right now towards the life that I want to live. And if you would like my help with this, if you would like me to hold your hand through this process, you're allowed to take, if you want to, the baby step of jumping on a free call with me, and we can talk about coaching if that's something that you would like. I'm telling you, all of the other people that you've seen on the channel, all of the testimonials of all the people that have done, you know, amazing things and lived beautiful lives and made all these changes, they all had doubts and insecurities too. They all were stuck on their opinion that it was too late for them, or they weren't good enough, or they'd never be able to make it, or everyone else can do it but not me. And yet look at all the beautiful things that they were able to do. You know, that's kind of what I'm there for, to open your mind and show you that, hey, you can change. You can take little baby steps. Even if you don't believe that you possibly can, take a leap of faith and throw yourself in there. Like a lot of people have. They literally take a leap of faith and they literally on the first call with me say, Andy, I'm trusting you that maybe you can help me. Like, I'm literally putting my fucking life in your hands, Andy. Like, please take care of me. Please don't let me fail. Please don't let me feel rejected and like a loser. And it's like, yeah, I understand that. You've paid me a lot of money. And more than that, because the money doesn't mean much. Money is just a fucking concept. It's the trust and the vulnerability that you're essentially putting your life in my hands. It can feel like that sometimes. And so if you want that, I'm right here. I would love to help you. I've helped hundreds of people at this point, maybe thousands more across all the platforms and content and blah, blah, blah. There's a link in the description below. Click that link. You can book in a free call with me and we can talk about your fears, your insecurities, your opinions, and your attachment to your opinions and how you think that it's not possible for you and all of that stuff. I promise if everyone else can change, you can too. And if that's a little bit too intimidating, if you'd just like a little one-on-one call with me, I also offer $200 coaching calls where we can sit down for a couple of hours and I'll coach you. I'll love you. I'll pour my heart and soul into helping you, whatever you might want or need help with. The links to both of those are down below. As always, ladies and gentlemen, go out there and crush those goals. And if you would like to, have a beautiful, peaceful time while you do it.